Beginning of the afternoon?
We're live.
It's still an important question.
I think it's just last before we go live.
Okay, but not every time we go live.
So
Yeah.
his boss,
Unless you want.
she's coming.
So then it'll be just when you kick it
Does
off.
does he get a smiley face?
No,
Yes.
If he never shows up, I would meet the pro temp.
What? I'm here. What are you talking about?
Bring it up with the
Now
former
it's
clerk.
Jimmy. Let's face it, Jimmy's
Yeah.
really one of the
Okay,
dog.
well, this will be part of the central business at 3 o'clock. Right now, it's March 14th, we're in Senate Appropriations, and we're talking about FY 26 budget requests. Day of friends at the vision. Now, what were we talking about? Yes, the department, children and families. And we have Commissioner Winters here, so I'll let you introduce yourself and any of the staff with you that you want to introduce and walk us through your budget presentation, which we have on our website.
Thank you, Senator. Really appreciate it. My name is Chris Winters. I'm the Commissioner of the Department for Children and Families, and joining me is Megan Smeeden, the Director of our Business Office, and we also have our Legislative and Communications Director, Nellie Marvel, in the room with us today. Sometimes we ask our deputy commissioners to join in case you have questions. We had a little hard time getting them, their schedules aligned here today, but we're happy to jump right in and bring back any answers to questions that you might have. Hopefully we can answer any that you do, but we'll get back to you quickly on any that we can't answer here today.
Okay.
We do have a very high level overview PowerPoint on your website, and I don't know the committee's preference. I know your time is limited today. We have until 3 o'clock. I can give a very quick overview of a few of those slides, and we can jump into the line by line that meets the.
Yeah, I think we're through the VA and other times we're familiar with kind of what the department does, but yeah, these slides where you have your budget numbers would be good to go through.
Excellent, thank you. The committee is, of course, familiar with the department and the work that we do. I can point you to slide 3 there about the agency's budget, the FY 2026 Governor's Recommend, and talk very briefly about the fund sources. As you know, general funds, special funds, interdepartment transfers, federal funds, and global commitments for a total of $673,000. Very high level, 673 million, sorry. Thank you, Megan. She's already earned her keep right here. That's a million, not a thousand.
Right.
Just a decimal point. The changes to the base appropriation over last year is a 3.5% decrease to the general fund, a 1% increase to global commitment, and a 3.3% overall increase to the total budget. Just to talk about some of DCF's largest federal funding sources, as federal funding is something that we're all hyper aware of at this moment. Our federal funding sources of over 10 million in fiscal year 25 were Title 4D in our Office of Child Support, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, the SNAP program in Economic Services. Some of our federal funding sources that are over 20 million from FY 25 are LIHEAP, the Low Income Energy Assistance Program. Those are both in our Economic Services Division and our Office of Economic Opportunity. The Temporary Assistance for Needy Families, or TANF, administered through ES Economic Services, Child Development Division and Family Services. Our Child Care Development Fund in CDD. Our Title 4E within the Family Services Division, Medicaid and Global Commitment across several divisions, and SNAP benefits also in ESD.
Are any of these you feel more at risk, or do you have any communication with the feds that give you pause on any?
We have lots of communication so far that give us pause, but nothing actionable at this point. We're keeping a very close eye on it, as you might imagine.
Is any one more you're concerned about more than others, or it's all just a general unease about federal funding?
Yeah, I think we're, really focused on economic services at this point, SNAP funding, TANF, but we're also getting some very concerning communication about some of our bigger grants, preschool development block grant, some of the other grants within our department. But right now it's still kind of we get communication, we ask for clarification, They say something's going to happen, and it doesn't happen, and there's a lawsuit, and then there's an injunction, so it's really tough to tell. It's a lot of chaos, it's a lot of concern, but nothing concrete that we need to take action on at this point. Back to the budget itself for FY26, kind of the buckets of big initiatives and adjustments within that you'll see in the line by line. Some of the major changes are due to caseloads, both in subsidized adoptions and substitute care, decreasing caseloads there, child care financial assistance, reach up, general assistance, and aid for the aged, blind, and disabled. You'll see the ups and downs there. And in terms of revenue, the child care financial assistance fund swap that you'll see proposed, the random moment in time study, and 4E revenue replacement. In terms of initiatives, Children's Integrated Services Consolidation, the Housing Opportunity or HOP program expansion, and the transportation contract adjustment within Family Services. A few others that I'm sure you see quite often are Pay Act and benefit adjustment, the Internal Service Fund, and within DCF private non-medical institution inflation adjustment.
Can you remind me the transportation contract and family services, what that is?
Yeah, we'll hit that as we go through the ups and downs. It's some increased needs and costs in transportation.
Like what is it? Who are you transporting? What is that?
So it's mostly transporting children and
Children in DCF custody?
in DCF custody or potentially being monitored and coming into DCF custody. There are federal requirements that we do certain supports and services as prevention work. And that was a result of an audit. And then there's also just increased costs in transportation in general, difficulty finding contracts and getting that kind of transport around the state. And we can go into a little bit more detail and get into ups and downs. So those are the highlights. And so at this point, I would just other one-time appropriations. We have the ESD General Assistance Program, Emergency Housing Program continuance at what we've seen in FY25 rates at the amount of 30.5 million. And I think that's in addition to the 7.5 million that's in the base. And in the Office of Economic Opportunity, an additional 2 million to go toward community shelter expansion in the proposed FY26 budget.
And would that be that community shelter expansion? That's the same that we had the 10 million in FY25?
It's for the same purpose, yes.
Same purpose.
All right.
And with the chair's permission, I turn it over to Megan Speaton to go through the line by line.
Okay.
Awesome. I'm going to go through the ups, downs. I will skip over the lines that are the things that happen all the time, salaries.
So what pay, are you going through this presentation or is what page number? Are you going to go through the pie chart stuff first?
I thought we were just gonna skip the rest of the
You
slides.
can, I just wonder.
And go, and those I guess would,
Okay.
given the time we have, we thought it'd be
Just-
better to focus on the ups, downs.
What page are you of this slide? Is it on the slide presentations or is the other document?
The other document.
The other document, but it's also just the regular ups, downs. That
So it's the other document that's called the
Narrative.
Narrative.
narrative. It's the narrative, but it's less narrative than the presentation. When you look at it, you're not looking at a lot of narrative.
It's got narrative.
If you slide over to the right, Senator.
Yeah, the last column. So this is similar to the way finance and management did it, where you have a narrative on each item, line item. But this is, you call this the ups and downs?
No, so I thought you all had the ups, downs, which, I can see one right there.
That is a up
That
down.
is
Yeah.
not,
Is that your up down?
It's Green Mountain.
No, that's somebody else's.
Yeah, so
That's what I didn't,
So if you'd rather we stayed focused on the other presentation with the slideshow with the numbers on it, we can do that.
we could get to your ups and downs through the JFO website if we wanted to. But I don't know if this document, this narrative document can be helpful because there is a narrative there. And if this is all the same,
it's all the same as the ups, downs, yeah, it's just goes line by line.
but yeah, you could, if it's easy for you to call out the things you wanted to call out on this presentation, we can do that. But we could also bring up the ups and downs.
I think we can just go with this then, it matches the ups and downs.
Yeah,
Okay, so starting the pink section, that's admin. So, like I said, I'm just gonna skip over the things that, we have that are frequently, that are on there over and over again, like salaries, health insurance, retirement, net neutral transfers and BAA items. Just because I think that will help us go faster. So for the, to start with in the pink section, we have salaries, fringe, we're skipping down to, there's operating for one new OEO position in IT, that's the first thing on there, it's $2,000. That wasn't something that was on BAA or just salaries and fringe. And then the transfer of the child nutrition program, which is also from BAA.
That's right.
Yeah, pretty much. So that's admin. So there's really nothing happening in our admin appropriation that we haven't already talked about in BAA, or isn't just the road changes we make to align our salaries.
okay.
So then moving on to FSD, which is the yellow section. Again, skipping past
Family services division.
Family Services Division. Again, skipping past all of the salaries and fringe. We have several net neutral technical corrections, which we have talked about in BAA, so I will skip those as well. The RMTS TCM impact, that's the targeted case management. It's a form of global commitment. And it is a result of our random moment time study, or RMTS.
So where,
Are you on the first?
the only problem with this is like there's a line number, so which number are you on? Where in this yellow are you at?
On line 30, if you look at you have open the next.
We don't have
don't have line
line
numbers.
numbers, unfortunately.
It's called the RMTS TCM impact.
What's the dollar number?
It's $2,732,000.
Okay, so at the top of page 3.
So,
And you want to remind us what the random moment in time study is about?
random moment time study is when it's how we allocate the costs of our social workers across the funding sources that they support. So they get calls that ask them what they're working on at any given moment in time, and they report it, and then we use those findings to allocate that across all of our funding sources. We recently got a new methodology developed and approved by our consultant to align and ensure that we're in alignment with all the federal regulations on cost allocations. And by doing that, we've noticed that more moments are being driven to general fund and less are being driven to our global commitment or our targeted case management funding sources, which has caused a loss of revenue and needs to be replaced with general fund in our budget for our social workers. So then the next one on there is the TANF revenue realignment. That's similar to BAA, it's DCF net neutral. We're transferring our funding between appropriations within DCF. We're able to earn TANF dollars in FSD to cover social worker time, but that cannot be a state maintenance effort cost. So if we spend the general fund on those positions that are eligible for that, the moments that are eligible, we don't get to put it on as a state match on our report. And so it's better if the federal revenue supports those costs, and then that way we can save the general fund to support costs that are eligible in CDD and admin to go on our report as state match. So it's just a swapping of general fund and TANF to make sure we're maximizing our federal dollars on our TANF reports.
Okay.
We have a revenue realignment with AHS. That's just, again, realigning based on where we're earning the revenue and where we aren't between AHS and DCF. We have our ISFs that we can skip, fee for space, insurance, other insurance, general liability, vision, ISD, EDS allocated charges, human resources. We have a technical correction for the Defender General's office, where we had funding that was transferred to DCF from the Defender General by the legislature as part of the 25 base budget. However, it was put in the wrong major operating code, so we're just correcting that. And again, that's net neutral within DCF. We have a net neutral transfer again within DCF, where we're transferring funding that was provided to DCF to support a youth homelessness initiative to OEO to be administered as part of our HOP program. We have a 4E revenue replacement. This is similar to BAA when we talked about it. Again, this is because we're able to draw down less 4E revenue due to fingerprinting delays than we would otherwise be able to. And so we have to have the general fund to cover those costs for our in-state residential placements of youth. We have our 4E FMAP savings. This is the percentage of funding that is funded by the feds for 4E. The percentage changed this year to our benefit. So we're able to leverage more federal funding and we need less general fund. Then we get to the transportation overage. FSD's transportation contracts have come in substantially over budget in the past few years, and this has really created a budget deficit pressure for FSD. This is to right-size the transportation budget to align with those contract values, the relatively limited number of potential providers, and the necessity for DCF to procure these services has really resulted in increasing costs with less bargaining power. We use these contracts to transport kids to medical appointments, school, all sorts of different transportation needs, and like Commissioner Winter said, prevention needs too, not just kids in our custody.
Prevention, what did you say?
Prevention, yeah.
Then that's children that might become in your custody. Correct. So it's all transportation, like daily transportation, like school, so it can add up.
Yeah, and it's really necessary.
And there's several, I assume you don't have one contract, like around the state, you'll have different entities that do this driving.
Correct.
And are they just driving their kind of quote unquote a normal vehicle?
I'm not certain the types of vehicles they utilize. We could get back to you on that. But it probably depends on.
I wondered if there was any overlap in this transportation, like the O&D or E&D transportation that we do another transportation committee and budgets. And is it the same? I wonder if it's the same kind of people that are doing that kind of transport for
SSTA.
SSTA.
Look into it.
Yeah. Do you know, Richie, like, is there a connection between the transport, the companies and the entities that are doing transport for children and then for the O&D kind of?
I don't know.
It's all part of Medicaid, or it's both of them can be funded through Medicaid, but I don't know if you have certain restrictions because you're transporting children that would cause it to be very different.
Yeah, we'll look into that, Senator. I think I have asked the question, and I know they've done a lot of research in trying to figure out who are the vendors out there that are available. I think there's more competition for those vendors now. We've had a real difficult time and increased costs because of that.
And they use a lot of volunteer drivers where they just pay mileage, which I assume you would not be able to do.
I think there may be a mix of that. I know that in some instances, we have our family services staff driving kids around, and that's really not the best use of their time, but we're forced into that in some situations.
So I wonder, because I think some of those contracts, like one of the difficulties of contracts is they don't have enough regular work. Because it's just like every once in a while there's a medical appointment, you gotta take somebody to whatever, Dartmouth. So, it'd be good just to look into it. Is there a way to synchronize those? Might not be.
So then the next line item on here is the UVM Child Safe contract increase. We contract with UVM for child abuse physician services. DCF has in the past, it's been a contract with VDH, and DCF has had an MOU with VDH, but we're taking out the middleman and contracting directly with them this time around. However, UVM has indicated that the cost of the services is really above what we've been paying in the past, and that they require additional funding to be able to continue to provide these services. So that's what that line is for. The next line is a couple net neutral technical corrections that we can skip over. People are interested in hearing about minor alignments. We have our post-permanency conversion. So those, one of them is to just correct the funding code, and then the other one is to split out the amount that we are using to give a rate increase versus expand the population served by the post-permanency. So the funding that the legislature gave us last year is being grossed up to global commitment, and then we will serve more people at a higher rate. We have a large net neutral correction, the other half of that, and then we get to our substitute care and our subsidized adoption caseload adjustments. We look historically, going back several years, we look at the cases by each of the subtypes of subcare and subadopt. We look at the cost per case historically going back several years, and we project that out. And for each of those, we look at what was budgeted and what we're projecting. And based on that analysis, we're seeing decreased needs for our FSD caseloads, both for our substitute care, which is the children in our care, and our subsidized adoption, which is the support we provide for adoptions. And then the last line is the inflation factor for our PNMIs, which are private non-medical institutions. These are our in-state residential providers, and we know that the cost of providing services continues to go up year over year. And so this inflation rate provides that sort of cost of living adjustment to those contracts. And that's FSD.
And Megan, before we move off FSD, I had asked the question, Senator, about transportation to our Family Services Division. I had a little more information in an email that I was able to find. There was a federal review, and the feds felt there was more we could be doing for parents to demonstrate reasonable efforts toward reunification in the form of transportation assistance to therapy, team meetings, other appointments, both for the parents and for the children. So we have to demonstrate some of that when we're working with the family. But for the most part, our transportation is focused on making sure we fulfill court-ordered requirements for the children and youth in DCF custody, just to make sure they get to where they need to be, like school medical appointments, parent-child contacts, things like that. And that transportation does come in all sorts of different forms. The family service workers and other support staff do an incredible amount of transportation on their own, both with fleet vehicles, I think, in their personal vehicles with mileage reimbursement. We have temporary case aides doing a lot of transports. We have a dozen transportation contracts in place with Easter Seals. They regularly ask for an increase in funding so they can better meet the demand. We contract with sheriffs. We contract with a company called YTA. And there's just a lack of capacity for that, especially in those after hours instances where we might have juveniles that we need to transport if they've gotten into some trouble after hours or need to get to a crisis stabilization or residential care somewhere. So lots of different things going on there with transportation driving the cost. So
it would be interesting just to check in, and I can do this too, with agency transportation that has other needs for other vulnerable populations that need to get to medical appointments. Has there ever been looking at combining those efforts?
You know, I think there has within AHS, but I don't know about outside of AHS. So we'll look into that and get back to you.
If only we had somebody on transportation on this committee.
Okay, so now moving to CDD. Most of the changes in CDD are things that we would want to skip over, because they're BAA items or personal services or ISF. So I'm going to skip to the child care financial assistance, CCFAP caseload savings. It's a down of $3.5 million. It's the second to last item in CDD. So again, we did a similar analysis for all of our caseloads, but we look at CDD is a bit more complicated because it's a new program, but we're looking at the known populations in each of our income brackets, how much we pay for each of those income brackets for child care financial assistance. We project an increase because we know that there's, we're starting our advertising campaign now. We've done a lot of outreach, but we anticipate that over the course of the year, more people will learn about the program or see benefit in the program and decide to enroll in the program. And so we do anticipate an increase from this year, and so that has been factored into this. All of that data was discussed with the JFO, and we reached consensus that the $3.5 million reduction is really, it's just savings beyond what we anticipate utilizing next year.
And it's pulling it from the fund that's collecting the payroll taxes.
So that's the next line on here. So this is a general fund cut. So we're saying that, we know we're gonna have costs of $173 million, and we have $176 million. I don't know the numbers off the top of my head. But the costs that we're anticipating are $3 million below the total budget that was appropriated. That budget is made up of special funds that come from the child care tax. It's made up of special funds that come from our earned income tax credit swap with the tax department. It's made up of federal funds and general fund. So the cut that we take is to the general fund, but all of those other funds are supporting the costs next year as well.
And then the reason there's general fund is because we had budgeted some general fund as we thought that the things were rolling up. Like that was supposed to go down over time, and all of the expenses were going to be covered with the payroll tax.
No, so I don't think that the plan is ever to cover all the expenses with the payroll tax. It was, I think, to cover the increased expenses as a result.
Right,
Yeah.
because we had the program before.
Yes,
right.
exactly.
That's the 50 million.
I don't know what the dollar amount is.
I think it's 50 million plus.
The 50 million was the base, or 50 million?
50 million from the general fund plus what's coming in from the payroll.
Correct. And then also we have 50 million of PITC swap special fund and various federal funding sources as well.
And this is similar to the issue we saw in the BAA as recommended by the governor, pulling, because of utilization, pulling some of that money out, using it for other purposes.
Correct. So that is the utilization. The next line is the revenue swap. And so, we looked at what the E-Board adopted in July. Their adopted revenue forecast, consensus revenue forecast were $19 million above what was initially appropriated for the child care payroll tax. We can only utilize that funding for the child care program. And so knowing that we have projected costs below the existing budget and that our revenues are going to be higher, we're able to swap that special fund in for general fund and utilize the general fund to meet agency-wide needs elsewhere.
Okay, Senator Ruth?
There is language in the BAA, which is obviously not law at this point, but expressing an intention to make sure that all of the fund goes to the needs of the childcare, including creating a special reserve in there. So I just want to note that. I see, and I appreciate the explanation, but we are working House and Senate toward a state of affairs where we won't be borrowing that money, the general fund portion.
Okay.
That is CDD.
I would just say, this budget is broken up the DCF budget between a number of us. Childcare is, the sections that I've been given. And so if somebody could contact me, I don't want to go through all of it. I just want to, if there's any new changes, if there's any areas we're worried about, or if it's like this where it's something getting off the ground, I want to cover that, that's it.
We'll be in touch, Senator, thanks.
And when we get to OEO, I have them,
as well.
so those are the two areas that somebody should contact me.
Thank you. And Senator Lyons, you have the rest of it, is that right?
I got the rest of
All
it.
right.
So the similar requests would be great.
We don't need to go through everything.
Yes.
Okay. If there's nothing else on CDD, the next appropriation is OCS. Nothing in OCS is really new other than, the normal things. So unless anybody has any questions on OCS, we can skip past that. Okay. So that brings us to AABD, aid for the aged, blind, and disabled. We have several lines here. The first is an adjustment to our administrative costs. We pay the feds to administer this program on our behalf. It's a cost per payment that we make, and the cost per payment increased, which means the cost of administering the program has increased. Then we have the benefit caseload adjustment, excluding our essential persons program. This is the benefit that we pay on top of the federal benefits that people receive. And again, if we go back in time several years, looking at the trends and the cases and the cost per case, we project that out, and we are projecting a decrease in our caseload next year. We also have an essential persons caseload increase on here because the opposite situation is happening here. We've seen an increase in the costs per case over time, and so we all of that sort of shakes out to a very small upgrade. So if no questions on AABD, I can move on to GA, our general assistant. So,
Not it, is that what they
I
just
think
That's her.
okay.
we just got you and we got.
So we have a few adjustments here. We have an adjustment to our support services caseload. Again, based on prior year trends and what we've seen, this pays for various medical needs such as burial, physicians, and dental costs. We also have a decrease to our personal needs and incidental caseload adjustment, again, based on historical trends and utilization. And then the final line is the security reduction. We have a budget of $859,000 for security. But then the language in the budget that passed last year said we were only allowed to spend up to $500,000. So this is just the difference between what was budgeted and what language allows us to spend. And that is GA.
Can I interrupt for 1 second? Counselor O'Grady, are you here just to talk to us about that amendment?
Yeah, let's see if you want anything else.
Yeah. We don't think we need anything else, but if we could just do that really quickly, if you don't mind, then counselor can go do other work. You want to hand it to us, or what do we need to do?
I can give you a copy, has the copy also.
And it was just those two changes, you didn't discover anything else or
No, I mean,
make changes? Senator Lucy didn't catch you in the hallway and make changes or anything?
they used to do.
I know, right. Okay. Real quick, but this bill.
I'm not sure, it's
We're
not
sure.
That's okay, we share.
It's,
It's not really big, they should.
okay, I can look at the committee page. Who was reporting this bill? Okay. So
Here, Bob.
we already agreed to this, we already voted on it, so Senator Norris, you'll just sign this and bring it up to the Senate Secretary's office. If anybody has questions for O'Grady. Okay, thank you.
We did, yes.
Put it 7-0, right? So,
Yeah, okay, sorry for that interruption.
No worries, so if no one has any questions about the GA adjustment, we can proceed to 3 squares. We are requesting federal funding.
What's the new program in 3 squares?
It's the summer EBT spending authority, so that's to provide children with food benefits over the summer.
After school.
Just the summer program, summer
Just the summer, yes, so it is a new program, we are adding
Is it-
federal dollars for it.
Is it all federal?
It is 100% federal, yes. And then we just have another adjustment on there for our benefit, our regular benefits, caseload pressures that we've seen. Again, 100% federally funded.
And the summer program isn't all EBT, is it? There's a regular, like the old type of summer feeding program where it's actual meals, or is it all switched to EBT?
I mean, we don't administer a feeding program in the summer, that might be happening via
Summer.
department.
So, what, can I? So is this a supplement to the EBT card for the family for the summer?
Yes, so if
That's what I thought.
the family doesn't, yeah, so we put it on the EBT cards. If the family is not already receiving an EBT card, we do print them and send them out for the child's benefits, and it is a per child benefit.
So this is not a program anywhere, this is direct aid to families.
New
Is it a-
federal subsidy.
Senator Brennan?
is it a one-time or an ongoing program? Well, everything's one time
It's federally funded,
to
so
start.
So it's been going on for a while, I mean.
this is the first year.
This is the first year,
Of this.
this is new.
Oh,
And
but the EBT cards in the summer are not new.
We did emergency pandemic EBT
Oh, that was
the
just
last couple of
COVID.
years, but that program transitioned out, and this is the new program.
so, and is there been any indication that this is going away? And I'm asking part of this, and I'll say this for the rest of you, because we've had requests for different food programs, whether it's through the food bank, through our local food shelves, all of those. I will speak personally, if we're facing federal cuts down the road, food's the primary place, first place I would go to put money. And so it's a balancing out. If young families are maintain that bonus through EBT, that it's good for us to know exactly what's going on here.
I would say, Senator, that we have nothing specific telling us it's going away, but of course we are concerned about it. You might remember at the very beginning of last year, we were saying, don't go ahead with summer EBT because the feds gave us the rules at the last minute. It was complicated. We really put together a team in a hurry to make it happen. We were able to pull it off, so we did.
And I would say to you, most of the legislature was interested in getting into that, because during COVID, as COVID ended, they ended almost $70 million a year in food benefits.
That's right.
So, thank you.
So then we proceed to reach out. We have a consultant that we utilize to provide us with caseload projections based on economic trends. Then we use our cost per case historical data from the last few years to project out. We are projecting based on the low caseload scenario that our consultant provided, and using our average cost per case, that would result in some savings in our reach out appropriation.
And this is just based on that, basically modeling, it could change on the real world. You would move money, come into BAA, it could change. And is there a transportation, sorry to be so transportation focused today, but is there a transportation part of reach out? Do they get transportation funding?
You know, I don't want to say for sure. I think there is. I can have Deputy Commissioner Gray.
Okay, yes.
So this envisions no increase in reach up benefit for participants.
Correct.
So this is a flat benefit. Could you give us the number, what the maximum benefit is, and a view of what the benefits are?
And get back to you on that.
Yeah, some of it's there, but when's the last time there was an increase in reach out?
2 years ago?
That sounds
Was it
right.
2 years ago?
2 years ago, we did it in here.
Right, I knew it became
And it was the
critical
first, but it was well, I think maybe the first time in,
in 100 years.
yeah, I think you're right.
What is the CPC, like in your narrative?
That's cost per case. So the average cost per case, and I don't have the range in there, but the
These are
average
the
is
admin
66.
costs, that's not the benefit that the reach out participants
No,
get.
that is the benefit they receive on a monthly basis.
Okay, 670.
I don't think it's much more than $800 a month.
Well, this says $686. It's high.
686.
So that's the average. So
That's the average.
yeah, so there could be, there's a range, and the average changes over time based on population and who's falling where in our range. But yeah, that is the average per month.
And as I said, I think full benefits and everything, it's not much over 800
Maximum.
maximum.
Okay,
And I just say that when people say that the population is getting rich, I'm not really sure where to get that.
right, I'm $600 a month, yeah. Okay,
Okay, so that's.
OEO,
So now
back to
we're
Rich.
at OEO. Again, jumping through all of the boring stuff. So we get to, again, there's a line for $5,588. That is the operating for the new positions that we need to support our new permanent supportive housing program that OEO is operating. And then the last line for OEO is funding. It's a new baseline increase to our HOP, Housing Opportunity Program. It's funding to support the operational costs of new shelters across the state that received the funding from the one-time appropriations we received last year. So we were able to work on opening these new shelters, but now that they're open, baseline operating funding to keep them operational. That's OEO. Weatherization.
So was HOP transferred from somewhere else to OEO? Was it in there?
No, so we did transfer some funding. It's the second to last line. It's a net neutral transfer from FSD to OEO to support youth homeless shelter funding.
Okay.
And it will be incorporated as part of our HOP grants that are administered.
And this is like definitely the down, this is a 3.3 million increase.
It's an increase.
What's the total?
I think the total amount that they have is 20 million.
The whole HOP program is around 20 million.
I can get you the exact number.
But I just knew roughly.
It's a little higher. It's been around 26,
Okay,
and it's a 3 million increase to base.
okay.
Right away.
Okay,
So yeah, it's 26 million, and we spent 23.9 million last year on HOP.
okay.
Weatherization, there's nothing to talk about there, so we can skip weatherization. And the same with our secure residential treatment facility, nothing to talk about. And that also applies to our disability determination services appropriation. So that just brings us to our one-time appropriations. We are proposing $30,500,000 to support the continuation of the current GA emergency housing program through 26. This is lower than what the funding that was appropriated for 25 for the same program, because we now know we've operated it for a year and we have been able to understand our capacity, our hotel room capacity during POC. We also have an $80 cap that is applied, so we have, it's a much easier projection to do this year and more accurate. So that's why it's gone down. It's not a reduction in services or change in the rules at all.
The $80 cap was only part way through last year, so that's why it was like 38 million last year and now.
Yeah, so we budgeted at 85 million for this year because there was talk of doing some contracts that would be at $90 per night. That didn't happen, and so all of our rooms are at $80 a night. And so
you just take the $90 a night by the number of room cap. This would be the maximum.
yes.
And this contemplates the 1,100 room cap in the non-adverse weather months, as well as an 80-day limit in the 80-day limit per person served in the non-adverse weather months. So those are some factors that keep that number a bit lower.
And does it keep the same? There's a limit during the weather months, 1,400, or is that it's just based on capacity?
Yeah, that's just based on capacity. It's at about 1,450 rooms right now.
And you budget for that thing for next winter?
Yes, we budgeted our max capacity for next winter's AUC, and then we budgeted based on caseload at 1,100 for the non-AUC months.
The AUC.
Yeah.
I haven't heard anybody use it as an acronym.
Adverse weather.
Yeah. I figured it out, but I was like, I hadn't heard it before. Okay. Yeah, I find this document more helpful than the absolute downs, actually. Easier to follow, I think. Is there anything else you wanted to?
Well, the last line on there is the shelter capacity
Oh.
expansion. It's $2 million one-time funding to provide startup costs to provide additional shelter capacity throughout the state.
And there's a lot of conversation happening probably as we speak in House Human Services about H91 and what FY26 should look like across GA and across the HOP programs for both hotel and shelter and other programs.
Do you want to, I don't know if you're allowed to or want to give us your impression on how that's going, or like
It really
collaborative approach with your
Yeah, I
department,
mean, generally speaking, I mean, the bill dropped this week and they've been taking testimony all week and doing markup all week. I think, generally speaking, we would like to see it stay close to what we had already approved for FY25. So keep very minimal changes in the hotel motel program for FY26, but look at some major changes in 27. And I think that's where the committee is really exploring having that funding administered by region and by the community action agencies is kind of the really innovative thing that they're looking at doing, and having that money stay more local and administered by municipalities and the community partners in the region in a way that they see is best for their community. That does remove the role of the state somewhat and would look to a restructuring of the Economic Services GA program and staff within it, and the Office of Economic Opportunity and their staff as well. So some big thinking for FY27, but we're still, I think, in disagreement with what the committee is doing in FY26 and trying to keep the program the same size that it is now versus expanding it.
Okay, thank you, that's helpful. With that, Senator Western?
Under this scenario, we've got shelter space now for 600 to 700, is that correct?
That's right, it's about 630 something shelter beds open right now.
And we need how many?
It's a good question. Like, should we be creating more shelter beds? Should we be trying to build more affordable housing units? It's all of the above, but we could definitely, they're always full, those shelter beds. So we definitely need more.
What's the number we're looking to get to?
We've been increasing by about 100 a year over the last 2 years. We think that pace will continue. That's,
The 2 million will get us another 100 beds?
it's questionable. We've got a number in the pipeline. It's really hard to say because there are so many factors that go into building these shelters, and we run into community opposition, no one to run them, zoning issues, construction issues, workforce
But is
issues.
this 2 million for permanent shelter, or this is temporary shelter?
I think
For
it's
both.
flexible for either. We would prefer to do permanent shelter, sometimes seasonal shelter, various forms, whether that's congregate or non-congregate. We have a whole bunch in the pipeline that are coming on. That nice expansion over the last year. That's where the 3.3 million additional in base comes in to keep running those through our community partners. They've done a lot to step up and bring on more capacity, but there's only so much they can do. So that's why it's hard to say, like, we think we can add 200 more, we think we can add 300 more. I think we're at capacity, so we definitely need to add as quickly as we can.
Did you spend that 10 million that was last year in this line item, that could have been permanent or temporary, or that was more specific for temporary?
It's been both. Megan, I don't know if you can say how much of that 10 million is obligated at this point. Because it comes and goes. We thought we had something going in Rutland, and that kind of fell through, and then we pivoted to some other things in Rutland. We have some projects in Burlington that are going well, some things in Franklin County, different expansions all over the state, but by the day, I can tell you it's changing.
Okay. Anything else you want to let us know about your budget?
I don't want to stand between this committee and emptying some sap buckets. So.
We have a central business booth. Any other questions for DCF? All right. Well, thank you very much for your time and your good work over there. So committee, we can